with us right now, Gavin Sequeira. Gavin, you're found on the web at breakfreefromcorporate.com. Your book, Break Free from Corporate, Be Your Own Boss. I am excited about this because, listen, I know there are a lot of people. I remember being that person, they're in a job. They're like, man, I don't feel like this is the be all end all for me. And particularly now, over the past year and a half, couple of years, when we look at the trends, there are a lot of people that are like, listen, if they're not satisfied in their work, they're gone. It's really interesting. And first off, Gavin, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, listen, my pleasure. Thank you very much, Josh, for having me on your program. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and you're, by the way, you're chatting from South Australia, is that right?
That's exactly right. I come from the other end of the planet, but you know what? It's blue skies. Over here, it's winter time, so everything's reversed, but it's a beautiful place. I'm happy to be here, and it's great that we can do this.
I love it. I love it. So Gavin, why don't we start off by talking about what's going on? Why does your book resonate with culture right now?
Yeah, look, you actually said it really well earlier. There's a lot of people right now, Josh, that are in their jobs right now that are unhappy. They're stuck. They're kind of, doing the daily grind, and they're kind of like in that rat race where they want to get out, but they can't. They feel trapped. They're stuck, and they're unhappy. And I guess at the end of the day, they don't know what else they could be doing, or even if they could figure out a way to do it, they don't know the right timing. They don't have the right support. It's a really tricky situation. And given the climate we're in right now, people are very risk averse. And so, yeah, this is a time when a lot of people are asking that question, like, what else could I be doing? What else should I be doing? Should I be doing more than one thing? Should I have a side gig? Should I, this is a perfect conversation to be having right now.
Well, and in your background, Gavin, you were doing good. Yeah, you were making really good money. You were doing $250,000 in business. So, I think a lot of people might look at that and go, Gavin, you're living the dream. What's wrong with you? Why would you walk away from that?
You know what, Josh? You're not the only one. I had family members. I had friends. I had people that were like, Gavin, what is wrong with you? Now, I didn't walk away from it. So let me fill you in a little bit. I was 12 years into my career, and I was in senior management positions, companies like IBM, Oracle, big multinational companies, and I loved it. I really loved what I was doing. To a point, I got to a point about the 9th or 10th year in my sort of career, and I started questioning everything, Josh. I wasn't happy anymore. I didn't like the political landscape. It had become this beast, and I didn't fit in the cage anymore. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend to be someone I'm not. It was inauthentic. I needed to find my own space. I needed to kind of, go out there and be my own person. But I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know how to start. I didn't know who to talk to. It was a really tricky situation. But that's where I found myself about 14 years ago. And then the global financial crisis hit, and there was a lot of restructuring going on. I had started a part-time business on the side. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I started something. And then I was told, hey, your job, along with another 450 people in the company, won't be there like tomorrow. You can either stay on in another division, we'll pay you half the rate that you're on, which is still pretty decent, or you can take a check and you can go. And you know what? I took the check and I left, and I said, this is a sign from the universe that maybe I need to try and find my own path. And I haven't looked back, and I'm very grateful that I was given that opportunity. So that's how I kind of made that exit.
Yeah. Well, break that down a little bit more, because, and you, of course, naturally, this is the whole context of the book, is that if you can, my recommendation, because when I left my corporate job, I did not have a good plan. And I was naive. I just thought, everything will just work out. And boy, was I stupid. But I just really, I had one of those moments of clarity, where, I'm like, I'm in the wrong place. And so I kind of made a hasty retreat, and I really wish that I would have, I would have planned better. So let's talk about planning better.
Very good point. So one of the biggest things, and you're talking about this book right here. So I actually had a copy handy. So one of the biggest things I say in this thing is without risking your income, right? So how do you do something without jeopardizing all that you worked so hard for? I'm the last person to tell someone to quit your job, because if you've got something that's putting food on the table right now, it's paying the rent, right? Stay with it, but use your skills, use your talent, use your gifts to maybe try something on the side. We all have time that we can find. If we can find that an extra 5 hours a week, an hour a day, 5 hours a week, or something like that, you can try something on the side. Give it some energy, give it some love, give it some direction. And if this thing can take off, you might develop a second income. Now, from there, you can start to scale and grow this thing. And maybe over time, you can transition across to it. And that can enable you to quit that corporate job once and for all. But you do it in a manner that makes sense for you. So like you said earlier, you don't just quit that job and put yourself in a worse position. That's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah. What about the sensitivity that folks may have where they're like, listen, if people at my work find out that I'm doing this thing on the side, it could be a mess.
Yeah. So, if we were talking, look, today is very different to what it used to be, say, 5 or 10 years ago. When I go back to the days when I had to start, when I started my very first business on the side, you really had to keep it down. You couldn't talk to colleagues about it. You couldn't talk to any, it was like no one could know about this, right? It was the world's best kept secret. Today, I think, given the fact that a lot of people work from home part-time, there's a lot of leeway, there's a lot of flexibility. It's not that uncommon to have a second or third income. I know my mom, when she brought me and my sisters up, had 3 jobs. I don't know how she did it, but she did it, right? This is what moms do. Like they work really hard, they support the family and dads as well. But it's not uncommon to have a second income. And so if it's something that's going to put your primary job at risk, then you got to think carefully about it. How do you go about it so that it doesn't affect that? But if it's got nothing to do with it and you can kind of draw a hard line and separate it, hey, there's nothing stopping you from doing something else. I mean, you don't have to put all your eggs in one basket. We're human beings. We like exploring. We like doing different things. And try your luck out at something else. We have skills. Try it out. You never know. You might find that you're really, really good at something that was a hobby, and now you turn it into a business on the side that perhaps with a little bit of effort and time, you can grow into something, really amazing. So I think you got to balance it out, Josh. Sorry to answer your question. I think it really depends on your situation.
What happens? Let's say worst case scenario, and let's say your supervisor, your boss, invites you in and says, listen, I'm kind of concerned that you're doing this stuff. And I'm afraid that it's impacting your, I'm afraid that it's impacting your work here. What are some things that how can we explain that? Or maybe we might want to let someone know in advance. Help me with that whole disclosure side.
Yeah. So, I think sometimes, again, this comes down to what do you want? If this is a burning desire of yours to do something and you've reached that point where you've got to, I think having that honest, open conversation with people, your boss or someone in your work that is a trusted person you could talk to, maybe sound it out, with someone before you go to someone quite senior and put your job at risk. But I really think if you can be upfront about things and maybe you say to them, look, I kind of have a bit of spare time on the weekends. And, I have this idea to kind of do this with, something I've been thinking about. What do you think? Do you think, would it be okay? And if they said, look, as long as it doesn't jeopardize your work and you still turn up and you still get everything done and you're meeting, quota and you're meeting your expectations, no problem at all. The minute it starts to affect your productivity, then we need to talk. Set the ground rules, right? And I think if you can have that conversation rather than it coming back to bite you down the track and you weren't honest and open about it, I think that's one way to handle it. If it's a clear conflict of interest, then I think you've got to think long and hard about that side business, because I have people who work in insurance and they're setting up an insurance business on the side, or someone who's,
Ooh, yeah.
and it's like, oh, you got all these non-compete clauses, and the last thing you want to do, Josh, is make your life complicated.
Yeah.
So there's lots of ways you can make money on the side. Find a way that's going to work with your current situation till you get to a point where you can do things that you want to do down the track. I think you just got to stay.
Yeah, here's another thing too. And I've, in terms of sometimes people are like, well, what should I do? Like, I'm not sure, like I have a few ideas, and sometimes people will say something like, well, I want to make quilts and sell them on Etsy, or I want to start a food truck. And I've never done anything around that versus, well, listen, I don't necessarily like working in a corporate environment, but I'm probably in, the 0.01% of the population that understands, like, let's say they're an engineer or something like that, right? And so as an engineer, guess what? There is a lot of opportunity to work as a consultant. And even if you don't want to work as a consultant, maybe there's ways that here's what I generally advise. I'm like, if you can, and if you might be able to develop this in a way that you would love it, please leverage all of this amazing authority. If you start over from square one and you're competing in an area that the barrier to entry is zero, I'm just going to tell you from my experience, that can be really tough. That is a really tough space to play in, as opposed to something that you can kind of waltz in and you're like, yeah, I already have all these relationships. I already have all this experience. I already know all these people. I know this industry inside and out. Talk about that for a second. No, talk about that for a few minutes, please, because I can't tell you how many times I'm like, ooh, can I convince you not to start a food truck? I don't want to smash anyone's dreams. If that's your dream, okay.
You know what you're doing, Josh? You're actually saving someone a lot of pain right now, because I've seen smart people who are senior in the organization, who've got years and years of experience, management experience. They've managed teams, and they think they can just waltz into a business like opening up a restaurant or a cafe or a service or something, and they think, you know what, that's easy. Like, no, it's not. If you've never done something at all, ever, the learning curve is enormous. Because right now, if you're listening to this, you might be in a corporate job. You might be a very senior person, quite a established figurehead in an authority in your space. But it took you a while to get there, right? It didn't happen overnight. Now, if you were to suddenly get off that horse and you start a whole new business, something you've never done before, guess what? You've got to climb that ladder from the very first step to get there. And there's a lot of steps. And you know what? If you try and skip some steps, you're going to fall down and you're going to hurt yourself. And I always say to people, just like you just said, Josh, leverage your skills, your background, your experience, the area you're already in. If you can, that's the best place to start. I always go after the low-hanging fruit. And here's the other thing. Rather than doing, I don't teach people how to sell shoes on Amazon. Why? Because I don't know how to sell shoes on Amazon. It's not my thing, right? One, I don't particularly like to sell shoes, and I don't use Amazon all that much to sell stuff. So, but if it was your thing, fantastic. But what I do like is I love creating things. I love putting a project together and seeing it come to fruition. I teach people how to do that for themselves because I enjoy doing it. Now, if you're really good at, let's say, sales or marketing, or you're really good at a particular service, and in the industry that you're in, you notice some gaps, you notice some things that are missing, you notice where your company does a lot of things right, but there's something missing, and you have the skills to go and close that gap, or you know where the pain points are in the industry for some of your clients, for some of your customers, and no one's really addressing it. If you can create a service or create a product or something that addresses that, you have a unique opportunity to do something, and you're already an established, credible figure in that industry. I always say it's easier to go down a path like that, where you're solving a problem that you already get, you already understand, you are the expert really in that industry. And it's so much easier to go there because you're going from here to here, rather than going from here to here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Gavin, so tell us about how you actually work with people. And so someone's listening to us right now, they're working corporate, like, cool, Gavin, show me the way.
Yeah, look, we have a conversation like this to start off with, because I really need to understand. Let's say I was talking to you, Josh, for the very first time, and I said, tell me, Josh, where is it you see, like, where would you like to be? Because you're successful at what you're doing, but you're not enjoying it, are you? Or what's going on? Tell me about it. So you would tell me all the things that are not working for you, what you would like to achieve, where you want to get to. Then we need to plan a roadmap to get there, right? So this is not about me saying, I think you should open up a cafe, Josh. What do you think? That's not how it works. We need to establish where you want to get to and what are all the different ways you can get there. And then look at the skills that you have. Look at so we do a deep dive. We actually run a strategy call on this, and we look at what skills you have, what experience you have, what have you done in the past, what learnings, we look at all of that. There's some exercises that we work on to establish, what would be the easiest thing that you can get off the ground, like in the next 3 to 6 months, if you were to put some time towards it, and number one, can you put some time towards it? Can you put the effort and the dedication towards it, and all of that? So we have a strategy and we have a process on how to take people through it. And that there's an ebook that I actually put together that has all of these mapped out. If anyone is interested, I'm happy to give it to your guests for free. They can download it at the end of it, and it's called the 8 Bulletproof Ways to Escape Your 9-to-5 Without Risking Your Income. And the key words in that is without risking your income, because nobody wants to put you in a worse position than you are now. If you're not happy, that's fine. You might have to kind of stick it out for a little while, but let's help you plan something on the side that can help you transition out, over the next few months, maybe the next 18 months, 2 years. And so we work out a plan, Josh, and then hopefully that plan makes sense. Then we can talk about how we implement that plan.
All right. So now you also have so the book, Break Free from Corporate. That's a great way, get that book and start kind of mapping this out in your head too. And that's available on Amazon. And you have bonuses that you can grab along with it too. So it's breakfreefromcorporate.com/book. You've got a link directly to amazon.com.au came up for me. Oh, you've got a Kindle edition for $4. Oh, come on, please. Get the book. Gavin, I'm excited. Oh, there it is right there. So I'm excited about this because, again, I hear a lot of gurus that talk about how easy it's going to be to make a full-time income and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Can I just tell you, man, take all of that with a gigantic grain of salt, understand what they are selling. Work on strategy, spend more time working on strategy, and just know that there is absolutely a market for gurus to sell get-rich-quick schemes. And there always has been. Be very careful of that. And I like, Gavin, like what we were talking about is, look, you probably don't need to recreate a whole lot. I know many people that have left corporate, gone straight into consulting, and they're doing just fine. They leverage their networks to say, hey, listen, I was working with XYZ corporation, where they can, under, non-compete and so forth. And, but, of course, as they share about that on LinkedIn and other places, talking about the work they're doing, telling stories about their journey, about the impact that they're creating. I'm going to tell you, I think that's a great business plan. You're going to have to do some things, make sure you got money socked away, because whatever you think, we only have a few minutes left, but, kind of this last thing here, however long you think it's going to take, it's probably going to take twice as long. Unless they've already worked with you and kind of mapped out everything, and you should plan from a budget perspective accordingly. Any thoughts on that? On just like the being able to pay your bills and that sort of thing?
Very, very good point. Yeah, you got to when you want to start your own business, you got to learn to retrain your mind. You got to reprogram yourself. So everything that you were taught to get to this point in your corporate career, will change, so your spending habits, your saving habits, your investing habits, your like the things that you read, the things you watch, the people you hang around with, the networks you build, all of this is going to need to change and adapt. So it took me a long time to figure this stuff out, Josh, but I'll tell you, if the quicker you can get onto things like this and get these sort of tips from experts like yourself, and the right books and talk to the right people, you're going to save a lot of time that it's going to take to get to the place where you want to get to. So 100% agree with you. It's a change of lifestyle, it's a change of habits, it's a change of mindset, but more importantly, you got to have this big purpose and why and drive. So when you're in corporate, you got a boss who's telling you what to do, and you got a team that supports you. When you're in your own business, you are your boss, you are your team. You've got to be really dedicated to what it is you want to achieve, because it's so easy. And you need to build a community around you that's going to support you. 100%.
Yeah, Gavin, so certainly, anyone who's listening to our conversation, please go to Gavin's website, grab the book, join the webinar. When you get to the point where you're like, how am I going to fill up my sales schedule so I can have sales conversations to get the clients that I want? I do a free course as well that I think dovetails nicely with this, Gavin. I hope you don't mind me. It's your interview, but I'm just, I'm thinking about, because one major concern I know is going to be like, how am I going to get the sales? How am I going to get these deals put together? I can tell you right now, if you leverage authority, generosity, and platform, you can have unlimited sales conversations. And if you go to upmyinfluence.com/free, you could join our free sprint course, and I'll teach you exactly the whole system on how to do that. And you don't have to pay. Well, I think you have to pay me $1 to keep out the bots or something like that, but I think it's mostly free. So, and I donate the $1 anyway. So, so Gavin, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Again, your website, breakfreefromcorporate.com. Get the book, Break Free from Corporate. Gavin Sequeira, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Josh. My pleasure.